All right, now let's take a look at Module 6 as a whole and what we have to do this week and work on. I'll use the link in the announcement to get to the modules area, and then I'll go to Module 6. All right, so this module is titled More CSS Basics. So really we're looking at additional properties that we're going to be using all the time, right? Basic properties that we want to add to our arsenal of properties to use for our page. Many of these, probably half at least, are CSS3 specific, which means that your browser must be able to display or render the CSS3 version of that property. Okay? So there's a few things here. We have 3 assignments, a lab, a quiz, and another milestone, our third milestone of our 7 project milestones. Your objectives there, we're going to talk about something called the box model. I believe I mentioned this in a previous class or session, and now we're going to talk a little bit about what the box model is, and then the different parts. Okay, width, height, margin, border, padding, it's all part of the box model. We're going to look at how we can now center our content in the page, which is nice. So far, all of our stuff has been left aligned. We don't really like that. We want to center it, which is more a modern approach. Applying shadows, very cool, right? Rounded corners, we don't have to use graphics anymore to do rounded corners. Multiple background images, opacity. Oh, another way that we can define color. So far, we're so used to hexadecimal value, Base 16, we got the zeros, the Fs, the ones, the nines, with that hashtag in front of it. Well, we don't have to code it that way, okay? With CSS3, we can code it with the RGB, values. So those of you that are in graphic design and such know what RGB is, red, green, and blue. It's basically what makes up our hexadecimal value. But at the same time, we can add this A at the end of this, the alpha, okay? Opacity, alpha, and transparency are all basically the same thing. The ability to make something see-through, So we can do that with a property called opacity. We can do that with RGB color and the A at the end of it for alpha. And another option we have with CSS3, and that is our HSL, color method. Hue, saturation, and lightness, So those are those 3, and we can, again, use our alpha to see the transparency, We can set the transparency of that color we choose. And, of course, gradients, We no longer need to use a graphic to have a gradient anymore, where the color starts at the top and it changes to another color by the bottom of the page. We don't have to use graphics. We can actually use CSS to do that, which is, thank goodness, We can do that now. I mean, what's the big deal, Why not use graphics? I mentioned it twice. For the rounded corners and for the gradiences, I'm like, oh, it's so good that we don't have to use graphics to do that. Why not? I mean, what's so good about that? Yeah. We now have to request multiple files to get that job done, just to have rounded corners, just to have gradients. Now, no files, less requests. The page loads faster. That's really what we want. A fast loading page. Especially now where our mobile devices are really taking over. And we want them to load as fast as possible. So the least number of graphics typically makes that page load faster. Okay? All right, let's continue on. It is chapter number 6. Please go to the companion website. Make sure you update your page. I do believe, your book that is, I do believe there are some updates. So just make sure you check it before you start to read through the chapter. Okay? Key concepts are there, what we cover in class, This is the extended version. We cover a reduced version. You have tutorials, Again, think of these as supplemental tutorials. It's really the same content that the book has, but maybe just in a different format. However, sometimes, like in this case, I've added something that the book doesn't have, and that is HTML comments. The book introduces you to CSS comments, but never mentions HTML comments. So I wanted to add that in there because you might get a feedback from me to say, add some HTML comments, right? And so I want to make sure you know what they are. Good. Commenting is always a really important part of developing web pages. All right, so what else do we have? And our lab files, of course, you'll need those to work through the chapter and the case study. And then our first assignment of 3, the lab. Oops. All right, you probably guessed it. We're going to be doing the case study, right, again. And in this case, there's really nothing new, right? No new pages. So you will have index, you'll have yurts, you'll have activities, you'll have your CSS file. Here, you're simply applying all the techniques you're learning with the additional basic CSS you're learning. Right? So we're tweaking, essentially. We're tweaking what we've done. Oh, I guess maybe the biggest thing is you're going to be taking your case study from a left-aligned page to a center-aligned page. So that's going to be nice. Okay, I think that's probably the biggest thing you'll be doing. Okay. Or the most exciting thing you'll be doing. All right, any questions on the lab? All right, let's rock and roll. All right, you do have a quiz, of course. 10 minutes, 10 questions, just like the other ones. Any issues here? I think for the most part, everyone seems to have enough time to do that quiz. All right, and then the third assignment is the sitemap, which I believe is the third milestone of your projects. So if we scroll down and we simply consider these 7, we're currently right there in sitemap. Okay. All right, let's go down to the sitemap assignment. There we go, and let's talk a little bit about it. So back in chapter 3, I believe, when we did that group assignment, right, which was really cool, that analysis of a website, it talked about sitemaps. It even talked about wireframes. We'll get to that next week. But this week, we're going to look at a sitemap, basically a hierarchy of your website. It is not a links map. It is a sitemap, which basically says, okay, what pages are the most important? Let me put them in that order. So very similar to a hierarchy of, let's say, a company where you have the president or owner and then the CEO, right, CFO, and you'll start to see it in more of a hierarchical fashion. Okay? And that's essentially what a sitemap is here and what I'm looking for. Now, you can reference chapter 3. Of course, I even give you where to go to do that for a little bit of information. Okay? Now, I don't believe it's page 68. I have to change that. I believe it's page 72 or 78. So if the page isn't quite right, just look for the sitemap. I'll change that as soon as we get done with this section here. Okay? All right. Now, what I have done to help, okay, is provide you with a PDF that essentially shows you a sample, just a sample, of a sitemap. It's very basic. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything more than something like this. Okay? So, here it shows me that the home page is the most important thing. That is the top, right, category of your sitemap. The next 3, right, pages are the next 3 most important categories, right, or pages in the site. And then the 2 pages connected to the basics are the next important under basics. There are no other pages under articles, and then there's 3 other ones under products. Right? I do want you to notice that this is a little bit different than what you might normally see. Notice how the lines go down and connect to the side of the page. Okay? This doesn't mean that older is less important than puppies. These actually have both the same importance. Okay? So it's not a line from basics going to puppies, then puppies to older. It's basics to both of these. Right? So if we consider turning puppies and older and we rotate it, that's basically what you're getting. It's just another display, another way to display. Okay? So food, treats, and supplements are all the same importance under products. Okay? They're all at the same importance. All right, any questions about this sample? All right, if you do, you can, of course, ask me. Now, how do you hand this work in? You have essentially 2 ways of creating it, 1 way of submitting it. The first way to create it is use any application you'd like. Okay? But you're going to have to export some sort of graphic or PDF out of it. Okay? That's the first option. So if you want to use PowerPoint, you want to use Photoshop, Illustrator, I could care less, okay? But you'll have to get some sort of file out of there that you can then upload to the web. Okay? Your second option is to forget all that, because there seems to be more work involved with number one than number two. Number two, you use a website called Gliffy, right? Create a free account. I think a free account gives you, I don't know, 15 days, or it gives you three or four flow charts, right? Or site maps you can create for free. Okay. I'm not sure what the licensing is anymore. They change it every so many months, it looks like. However, you create an account and you can create your own sitemap on the web already. So you don't have to worry about uploading it to the web. Okay? You create your sitemap and then you provide me with the publicly accessible URL of your work. Not the URL that has me log in, because I'm not going to be logging in. You have to give me the publicly accessible URL. You might have to look for that, right? So that's something that you'll have to investigate. Okay? But it's there. So those are your two options in creating the sitemap. One is your own program or some program you have to export and then you have to upload to the web so you can give me a URL. Here, it's already on the web. You just create it in the program and give me the URL. That's really up to you, right? So the URL really is what you'll be providing me for this assignment. One URL to the sitemap. Sound good? All right. That was the sitemap. Any questions about Module 6? Yeah, the last thing you see there is our hands-on, in-class hands-on file. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah. Let's go. Hold on. Let me get back to it. Oh, okay. Nope. Either way. Just so the hierarchy is correct, right? The way that you want it. Yeah. Doesn't matter to me. Because they're essentially both the same. Yeah. Whatever you like best. Good question. All right. That is Module 6.